Hey folks, today I'll cover a classic JRPG that I played for the first time just now, after an endless procrastination. The Legend of Dragoon. This is a game that has always fascinated me, despite the fact that I've always known more detractors than fans, and seemed a very divisive product like the contemporary Final Fantasy VIII. And curiously, one of the things I mainly knew about it over the years was the trash Italian dubbing.
Ero necessario.
È ordine di Sua Maestà l'Imperatore Doel di arrestare quella ragazza.
Ma chi è?
Questo non la riguarda.
Doppio colpo!
Seriously, it's delirious, and universally considered a meme in the Italian boards. By the way, some months ago I stumbled upon an NTSC copy sold for cheap, and decided to add it among the other classics on my shelf. The Legend of Dragoon is a first-party game published by Sony, and boasts a development time of years, involving over 100 people, and the result is a classic game that, surprisingly, went beyond my fair expectations. It's a long and quite enjoyable adventure across the fantasy world of Endiness, enriched by an interesting backstory and mythology to discover in the over 40 hours of its duration. It's a story that involves many classic tropes, like, the classic childhood friendship, trust, and love, then reconciliation between species that used to fight each other, and the discovery and acceptance of the sometimes painful past in order to gain the courage to face the present and fight for the future. Frankly speaking, The Legend of Dragoon doesn't tell anything new that hasn't already been told by other stories from any media, but it has one merit. It does it very well. See, the story has a good pace, there's a lot of foreshadowing, and even if something seems very obvious from the beginning, when it's revealed, it still surprises. This is our protagonist, Dart, a swordman on his way back to his village called Celes after a 5-year journey in search of truth and possibly revenge for an obscure event related to his childhood. But his return will become turbulent, because the truce between the two opposing forces, Imperial Sandora and the Kingdom of Basil, is interrupted, and the civil war begins again. In fact, Dart runs into the Sandora soldiers, and is soon even attacked by a freaking green dragon, which looks more like a mantid. But is saved by a mysterious woman who was passing by, and who notices something special in him after he runs away to Rashom. Celes, in the introductory video, is seen pillaged by Sandora's army, and the objective of the invaders seems to be a mysterious girl who is kidnapped under the orders of the Emperor Doel. So Dart finally arrives, gets quite pissed, and fights back the invaders. The Legend of Dragoon features a classic turn-based combat system, in which we can perform attacks called additions, based on simple quick-time events. Basically, when the blue squares converge, we must press the X button to continue the combo, but at the beginning Dart performs a simple move called Double Slash.
Yes! Double slash!
After beating the first soldiers and their commander, which is the first boss, Dart discovers that his childhood friend, Shana, has been kidnapped and taken to the Helena prison. Hence, Dart decides to depart immediately and rescue Shana, and before leaving Celes we can talk to his former master and gain access to the tutorials and learn, for example, about the counterattacks. In short, many additions require multiple QTEs in order to be executed, but the enemy can intercept the attack and try to interrupt the combo and blow away our fighter. In these cases, the square becomes red, and we must press instead the circle button in time, otherwise the attacker will receive damage. On the way to the Helena prison, we can experience a bit of exploration in the open world and the first dungeon area. The open world is quite simplistic and composed of fixed trails between places of interest, and in both the world map and the dungeons we'll get to fight in the classic and numerous random encounters. During the infiltration into the Helena prison, Dart will meet and help to escape the noble knight Lavitz from the Kingdom of Basil, who will join his rescue mission in return. Lavitz is the second playable character, and like Dart can perform additions in battle. Together they will free Shanna, then fight the gargantuan head warden Frugel, and finally flee from the prison. From now, the Legend of Dragoon story takes a political turn, as the title of the first chapter, Serdian War, suggested. Dart's group is now fleeing from the persecuting soldiers, and under Lavitz's advice, decides to head towards the capital city of Bale, passing first through the Limestone Cave, where Shanna will manifest something that will create mystery and which will be decisive for future events. Once in the capital, Lavitz reports to his king, Albert, with whom discusses the ongoing war. See, Imperial Sandora now relies on the power of the Green Dragon, making it a very serious threat, and for this reason Dart decides to put aside his personal affairs and go in battle with his new friend to end the war, alongside also Shanna, which refuses to be left behind. So Dart's group will soon leave the capital, but not before visiting Lavitz's house and having fun together before moving on to serious business. See, the next events will be very interesting, as in the City of Oaks we'll finally see something happen that will change everyone's fate. A grueling battle begins, and when Dart seems doomed, the mysterious woman from the prologue reappears, saving him and awakening the power of the dragoon he possesses, in this very cool sequence. The woman named Rose will be a fundamental figure for the main events of the entire game. She is the one who saves Dart at the beginning, and who already knows and possesses the power of the Dragoons, the legendary warriors of a past era powered by the spirit of dragons within gems that choose their users by themselves. Dragoons are not just a plot device, because their introduction will also bring new options in battles. In short, characters who acquire such power can then perform a stylish transformation if they possess at least one expandable dragon level, which is accumulated by gaining spirit points, obtainable by performing successfully chain attacks and additions. The story becomes more intricate as new characters enter the scene and events from the distant past begin to connect to the present. Following Dart's awakening, also the other characters come into possession of a similar power, and this story seems to repeat itself, with a group of dragon warriors fated to face an imminent catastrophe. We'll see the civil war between the Kingdom of Basil and Imperial Sandora reach its climax, but not before certain unexpected twists that left me very surprised. And in the meanwhile, new members join the group, sometimes inheriting someone else's powers and abilities. My favorite new protagonist during this first chapter is this old martial artist, who is also an old acquaintance of Dart that knows how to kick ass. Hashel. He wears a purple vest and is so strong that he crumbles enormous stone doors with his punches. Damn is the undefeated of the East, and Dart looks like Dom's blonde cousin. Anyway, the group of heroes shows a strong alchemy between its members, and the journey through the world of Endiness becomes more epic. In the second chapter, we'll get to know new playable characters. The first is this cheerful dancer, Meru, which I really didn't like that much at first glance, because it seemed a bit forced the way she entered the party and how she stayed in it afterwards. Meru is in some ways the comic relief that serves to lower the level of austerity of the group. After all, she is a little girl discovering the world, and later on will show some interesting traits, proving to be a good addition to the cast and also very useful in battle, thanks to the high speed which allows her to have many turns. Then there's the curious case of Kongol, who is not a bad character per se. He is pretty well introduced like an indomitable and proud warrior, which joins the party long after being beaten and spared. He is supposedly the last member of the Gigant race, and is presented as a barbarian searching for true meaning to his life, who then finds comfort and peace thanks to Dart's generosity. During the game, there are some scenes where, for example, his large size doesn't allow him to enter certain rooms, creating funny situations, but in the end, I didn't find him that well developed. I mean, even his dragon spirit is not even obtained in a crucial event like the other protagonists, but instead is found for sale at the bazaar of Loand Commercial City, or alternatively, almost at the end of the game after defeating a boss. Sometimes I had the impression that the authors didn't even like him. Well, whatever, at least in battle he's a freaking tankish beast, but also very slow. By the way, after Kongol there will be another final entry into the main cast, but I will not deepen it that much because it happens very late in the plot. She's called Miranda, a strong-willed woman and I'd say a fine character, despite the limited screen time compared to the others. The overall story of The Legend of Dragoon is a continuum of events that never feel like fillers, and the subplots are very well intersected. As I said, there are numerous foreshadowings that lead to very well constructed twists regarding the past of several characters, who usually find themselves connected in unexpected ways, such as Dart and Ashel. The first in search of truth about the nature of the Black Monster that destroyed his village, making him an orphan, and the second who for many years has been looking for his daughter and former main pupil who ran away from home. Furthermore, Shana will often be the protagonist of mysterious manifestations, which will then have a proper explanation, and Rose, who is the most mysterious character that knows a lot about many things, will reserve many surprises. As I stated in the intro, the story of The Legend of Dragoon doesn't tell anything very original, but it has the merit of being quite compelling, and the final part is surprisingly well done and not rushed at all. On the contrary, it lasts a long time and has a satisfying ending. Personally, I found the writing not always that stellar and sometimes very juvenile, but I admit I found it less silly than some other classics like, let's say, Final Fantasy VIII. Seriously, I think that The Legend of Dragoon is a better written game. Okay, I think it's time to deepen some important things. First, new additions are acquired by leveling up, and every character has a different number of them to unlock. But then, the additions cannot be selected during battles, but we must set them from the main menu. As you can see, every special move can be upgraded by simply performing it, and after every 20 fully successful executions, it levels up to the 4th level. Some additions will inflict tremendous damages, but also produce much less spirit points than others, so before fighting bosses it comes handy to exchange them in order to start battles with the highest dragon's level available. Actually, I found this system quite strange and clunky. I mean, why not just select the additions like an ability during the fights, or maybe implementing a combo system like Xenogears, which I think it would have been great in this game. Also, the whole QTE system can be an annoyance, because some powerful additions have very fast chains to perform, and the counterattacks become very irritating. By the way, there are additions that cannot be counterattacked, and after mastering all the available moves, a final addition is then unlocked. Now, as the second, let's analyze the use of dragon forms in battle. By transforming into a dragoon, the character has a great boost in all stats, but also some disadvantages. He can't use items and the guard command, and the transformation cannot be undone unless all the levels are consumed. These levels reflect for how many turns the form remains active, and the commands available are D-Attack and Magic. The first is simply an attack chain where first we have to do a QT on a rotating indicator. It's fast, but it's much simpler than some advanced additions. The other is a classic magic command, with spells of various kind for each character, who dominates a specific element, and we don't need to do any QTs to launch them. Continuing, the dragoon forms can level up to the 5th level, and for each level up they will usually acquire a new spell and 20 extra magic points. However, the dragoons need spirit points for leveling up instead of experience points. That said, be ready to fight a lot of random battles and perform certain additions to level up the dragoons fast and become almost unstoppable. Well, not always, because certain boss fights will make the dragoons less formidable, but, I kid you not, starting the boss fights with the full gauges helped me to wipe out the floor with the most of them. When all characters have their gauges full charged, we can select this special transformation command. The Dragoon Warrior who uses it will gain an additional boost in physical attack and defense, and the D-Attack command will not require any QT. Instead, it will automatically score a perfect. Also, the other party members will transform as well, and the battle screen enters the element dimension, where the background changes to a different color palette related to the dragoon who used the special command, and this element will deal extra damage to its counterpart, but will also receive more from it. It sounds strange, but for example, fire will damage more water and vice versa. During my playthrough, my active party always included, well, Dart, who is replaceable, and Rose, and the third entry was usually one between Meru, Kongol, and especially Hashel. The game encourages to create an ideal party, taking into account the different speeds, damage outputs and defenses, but I preferred to select just the characters I liked the most story-wise, also because the overall game is not even that difficult, and I suffered just 4 or 5 game overs in total. Okay, I admit that sometimes I reset the game to assign different additions and equipments, but that counts as a strategic retreat. I'll tell you, I haven't used Shan almost at all, because she doesn't have additions, and her dragon form uses healing magics which are replaced with recovery items, and here comes a big problem, that is the limited inventory slots. This has been the greatest annoyance in the whole game, because someone had the brilliant idea to limit the number of storable consumables to just 32. For this reason, I continually had to choose between what to take with me and what to leave or sell. I would have preferred a system like Grandia. Another flaw of the game is the management of equipment. Instead of selecting a weapon, armor or accessory from its own section like all the other classics, there's this comprehensive list where everything is mixed. Yes, it can be sorted, but every time I had to scroll through everything to find what I needed, and there's no possibility of unequipping anything. Seriously, I'm puzzled. Now let's talk about something very divisive. The game has many random encounters, which maybe were quite the norm back then, but there are areas with enemies visible on screen that can be avoided, and sometimes they even get alerted and start chasing us. It baffles me to think that the devs could probably place them everywhere, but they preferred to implement random encounters almost in every map, which were already largely surpassed by other classics of the time, such as Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross, Grandia, Lunar, Earthbound, Super Mario RPG, and many others. One curious thing about the battles against the common enemies is that they give very little experience and gold compared to the average seen in other JRPGs, and in fact, aside for leveling up Additions and Dragoons, these battles don't permit to get over-leveled easily and break the game. Instead, we'll have to battle unique monsters in order to earn a lot of experience and money, especially the latter. I'm talking about the infamous colored birds, the jars, and these robot things. They have the peculiarity of having just 4 to 6 HPs in total, but it doesn't mean they are easy to defeat, because they have a very high evasion rate, are always immune to physical attacks or magics, are very prone to running away, and receive always not more than 1 point of damage. To beat them is required a bit of preparation, like equipping items that boost the speed and the hit rate of both magic and physical attacks, but also using in battle consumables that can stun them or release attacking spells, unless we use these items called sachets that will inflict always 10 points of damage, but are very rare to find, and are also dropped very rarely by the piggies located in the home of Gigantos. Personally, I would concentrate on the red birds located near Leningrad, because they'll drop 1000 gold and a phoenix plume sellable for an additional 300. I'm saying this because the game features equipments that boost immensely the physical and the magical defense, but they cost 10,000 gold each. Therefore, being able to buy the Legend Casque in Lohan and the Armor of Legend in Leningrad will make the game much easier, but requires a lot of patience. And luck. Moving on to something else, I must say that graphically, The Legend of Dragoon is still a very nice game to look at, starting from the pre-rendered backgrounds which are very evocative and full of details, on par with the best of that era such as Chrono Cross or Final Fantasy IX. The environments are enriched with visual effects of various kinds, such as sunbeams, smokes, footprints on the snow, and moving waters. Sometimes we can even see critters or flying birds, and leaves blowing in the wind, all little touches that give an extra sense of liveliness. The overall art direction is really superb, and throughout the whole adventure across the world of Endiness, there are a lot of beautiful places to discover. And speaking of art, I also appreciated the overall character design, which is a good mix of anime style and something kinda realistic. Just look how cool are these concept arts. Another thing that I appreciated a lot is the religious imagery showed in the cutscenes that tell the legendary past of Endiness, which I think are very neat and inspired. Furthermore, the game also features full motion videos like the Final Fantasy series. These are very well done, but much less numerous, and for the many highlights of the story, the game features instead cutscenes created using its own engine. I actually found the scenes well directed, and I liked the characters' models actually showing different facial expressions. The 3D models outside of battles sometimes show well-made animations, and I was amazed to see these evasive maneuvers done by Dart in the prologue. In battle, the additions are, let's say, fluid and fun to watch, and the enemy monsters also have well-animated attacks, but, for example, certain little things are missing, such as the death animations that were featured in Final Fantasy VIII. However, the game shows its best in the pompous and long animations of special attacks and spells performed by our protagonist and the enemies, especially the bosses. These long and unskippable sequences show how well the game's budget was spent. Perhaps today are difficult to watch over and over again, but come on, let's be real, the most of them are terrific. By the way, I admit that many times I speeded up the emulator because I was a little bored, but I don't want to count all this as a big flaw, because those were different times, and all this stuff should be praised. I think that the infamous dragon spell called Demon's Gate deserves an honorable mention. See, due to the Western censorship, what was supposedly dripping underneath was actually blood in the Japanese version, but instead a much more ambiguous situation was created. Seriously, what were they thinking? Aside this bullshit, the game contains some decent dungeons with good puzzles, and my favorite is this one in which we have to gather the access to a reserved area through a bureaucratic process. First, we must head to the Legislation Center, respect the line, and then request the submission for a revision of the law. Enter the code and obtain the law production license to bring to the law factory. Once there, we'll be given the law launching license, and finally submit it to the law launcher to finish the process. There are actually 2 mandatory revisions to submit in order to continue the story, but also some optional ones that will change the area's rules, like disabling the random encounters and the access to the shops, which isn't a wise decision. Well, that was very neat. Talking about the sound compartment, The Legend of Dragoon owns a good soundtrack composed by Dennis Martin and Takeo Miratsu. The overall music score of the game is really enjoyable and boasts some great pieces such as Twilight of Rose, A Dragon Killed in Action, Lloyd's Theme, World Map 2, and some others like the catchy boss battle themes and the ending song titled If You Still Believe. On the other hand, there are also some tracks which are quite generic and boring, but luckily listening to them has never bothered me to the point of turning off the audio, and believe me, that really happened with some games. Continuing, the English voice acting is, well, much more listenable than the Italian one for sure. It's still a bit silly and out of sync during the cutscenes, but I'll tell you frankly, I listened some bits of the original Japanese and I didn't find it that great. The Legend of Dragoon lasted me over 50 hours, and it has been an entertaining adventure that went beyond my modest expectations, caused by the large number of detractors that I always known during these years, and of whom I still have to understand the reason for their hatred for this game. It's perhaps not a genre-defining classic like some others, but it's not even remotely a mediocre product. On the contrary, I think it's a fundamental JRPG for those who want to learn about the genre and go beyond the classic Final Fantasies that dominated that period. It certainly doesn't have the historical weight of Final Fantasy VII, or the superlative gameplay of Grandia and the depth and themes of Xenogears, but in its classic nature, it knows how to leave its mark thanks to its pace and characters. And speaking of extras, it has quite a few optional bosses that I enjoyed beating. Well, except the one that requires finding all the 50 Stardust scattered around the game world, and I wasn't in the mood to find them all. Hey, nobody's perfect, okay? To conclude, I was very pleased to have played The Legend of Dragoon, and I hope that with this video I can convince someone else to play it too, because it's indeed a worthy classic to try. As always, a warm thanks to all viewers, and see you in the next entry.